Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. I know I've been gone these past couple of days. I was out of town for the weekend, and a lot continues to happen in the NBA really since the All-Star break. The league's been on absolute fire, and of course tonight, Damian Lillard had 71 points, so you know we've got to focus on that first. But real quick, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos, and let's go ahead and get right into it. So yeah, Damian Lillard had 71 points, and I could really just stop this section of the video there and move on to something else because I think it's pretty self-explanatory why that's amazing, but I'll go ahead and break it down. Damian Lillard had 71 points. It was absurd. He had one of the best offensive performances I've ever seen. Obviously, one of the very few 70-point games in the history of the league. And according to true shooting percentage, the most efficient 70-point game that we've ever seen. He is the second guy to score over 70 points, tying Donovan Mitchell's career high earlier this season, also of 71, which is wild that two guys scored 70 in the same season. The first two people to do it since Devin Booker did it like 6 years ago. Wow, I feel old saying that. But yeah, it's been a continued scoring explosion over the course of this year, but having two guys score 70, I thought might have been unprecedented. I went back and looked at the numbers, and of course, Wilt Chamberlain has done that before by himself in a season. If there's any record, Wilt probably did it first. I feel like that's just a general rule of thumb for the NBA. But yeah, Damian Lillard himself, amazing performance. In total, his stat line was 71 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, while shooting 22 of 38 from the field, 13 of 22 from 3. He was 1 3 short of tying Klay Thompson's record for most three-pointers made in a game. And in terms of quarter breakdown, he had 16 points in the first quarter. I mean, right away, you could tell that Dame was on fire, which has been the regular for him over the course of this year. But this kind of felt special, especially in the second quarter. When he had 25 points, he was shooting heat checks from literally right inside the logo. A lot of people say logo 3 and they mean the edge of it. No, this 3 was well within the logo. It was incredible, and at that moment, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, Dame is going to do something special. He ended the half with 41 points. He came out kind of slow in the third quarter. He only had 9 points, which for most players is a great total, but for Dame, it kind of seemed like he was slowing down. We weren't going to get like a 60 or a 70 piece, and then he had 25 in the fourth quarter, 39 minutes in total to score 71 points. No overtime needed. He did it all in regulation, and he did it incredibly efficiently. Like I said, the single most efficient 70-point game we have ever seen, while almost breaking the three-pointers made in a game record. Dame is just one of those players that makes impossible scoring look absolutely trivial. Like I said, there was that logo 3. There were multiple threes that were from incredibly deep, which has become the norm for Damian Lillard. There's some where he was inside the arc and they quickly needed a shot, so he ran outside the arc, caught it, and immediately fired the ball up. Drilled it, of course. He was highly contested. There was a lot of end of shot clock scenarios, and he was still knocking down 3 after 3. He was getting downhill with ease, finishing with floaters, finishing through contact, multiple and ones in this one, including a dunk on Jabari Smith Jr.'s head. Legitimate poster in the midst of a 71-point performance by Dame, who is a small guard and mostly known for shooting, so this came out of absolutely nowhere. It took him a bit to get up because he was gassed from scoring 70 points, but yeah, it was truly one of the best offensive performances I have ever seen. Some people were saying it was stat padding, but it was legitimately a close game midway through the fourth quarter. I think the Rockets came within 7, if I remember correctly, but once again, you know, it never felt like the Blazers were in real danger because they had Damian Lillard on the biggest heater of his entire career. But if Dame hadn't kept chucking up shots and nailing them like he was, there's a real chance that the Blazers could have lost this one because Damian Lillard scored 71 points. The Blazers themselves, the rest of the team, had 60. He scored over half of the team's points in a game where they put up 131. Like, that is unbelievable. And sure, they ended up blowing out the Rockets in the end, but it's only because of what Damian Lillard did that they ended up having a blowout to finish off the game. To put this into even more perspective, the Wizards played the Bulls today, and in that game, Washington was held to just 82 points. Good defensive showing from Chicago. The Wizards, as a full squad over the course of a 48-minute game, had 82 points. Dame himself, in 39 minutes, as one guy, had 71. He was only outscored by 11 points. That is absolutely ridiculous. And weirdly enough, it almost felt like this was due for Damian Lillard. Like, this is something I'm not super surprised about. Like, Donovan Mitchell scoring 71, I was like, okay, that's wild. But Dame doing it really didn't surprise me that much. When I saw he had 41 at halftime, I was like, okay, yeah, this is Damian Lillard, what he's been doing all season. When I saw 71, of course, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But even still, I was like, yeah, that's Damian Lillard. I'm not surprised with this season in particular that he's having, which might be the best one he's ever had. This might be the best Dame has ever been, which feels wild to say after last season, of course. He dealt with that core injury and he really never looked like himself. His shot was not falling. He needed that surgery. But now Dame is back, probably better than ever in my opinion. And if you don't believe me, let's take a look at some numbers, because over the last 20 games, which I've been meaning to make a Dame video for a while, so I'm glad he decided to drop 71 to give me an excuse to do so. But over his last 20 games, Dame is averaging 39.1 points per game, nearly 40 points a game over a 20-game stretch, which in itself is wild. It gets crazier because he's also averaging 7.3 assists per game, creating well over 50 points per game for his team, in addition to a 71.2 true shooting percentage. Unreal efficiency, unreal output, the volume, everything is ridiculous. This is one of the best 20-game offensive stretches in the history of the sport. It's reminiscent of when James Harden averaged like 37 over the course of an entire season and was putting up these crazy like 50, 40, 45, 60-point games left and right. Dame is doing something like that now as well. It's wild to watch, and it is, once again, cool to see. After last season, it felt like we may never see Dame on this type of stretch again. We may never see the Damian Lillard of old. Of course, we are still going to see an incredible player, but it felt like the best years of Dame may have been behind us. No, because he's having... I'll once again make the argument, this is the best individual season Damian Lillard has ever had. This also brings me to a topic I want to quickly go over, and that's the scoring outbursts that we're seeing over the course of the league. So many guys are averaging over 30 points per game, over 25 points per game. It's like the most points we've ever seen across the league in a single season. 40-point games, 50-point games, 60-point, 70-point games. It's only a matter of time, it feels like, till someone scores 80, which brings me to the thought, how far away is a potential 100-point game? How far are we from someone getting this close to breaking Wilt's record or even surpassing it? Because a lot of people now on Twitter are talking about that with these two 70-point games. We saw Dame, if they went to like a couple overtimes, maybe it would have been possible. Maybe Dame could have put up nearly 100 points if this game was closer. This, of course, brings us to, if somebody is going to get close to or break that record, who's it going to be in the league right now? Is it someone like Dame or Donovan Mitchell who have scored 70 this season? Is it a Luka Doncic who can score at a high level with incredible volume? Although him having Kyrie Irving, I feel it kind of complicates that a little bit since there's now another high-level volume scorer on the roster. Could it be Steph Curry who could go out there and hit like 15, 16 threes in a game and somehow make it happen? Could it be Giannis, who is an unstoppable force when he gets downhill? Joel Embiid, who can get to the free throw line a lot in addition to dominating in the mid-range. He can back you down to the basket, although he plays a pretty physical brand of basketball, so I'm not quite sure if he's going to be able to just sustain everything he's going to go through to get to a 100-point game. Could it be Nikola Jokic, who sometimes favors efficiency and doesn't shoot as much, focuses more on playmaking than scoring, but if there's a night where he just decides, I'm going to score at a high level and shoot basically every shot, could he get close to a record like that? And of course, there are other names too. We could mention Jason Tatum is another guy who comes to mind amongst many others. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. If somebody got close to or broke Wilt's 100 points, who would it be in the league right now? And if there's someone else that's going to drop 70 this season, which wouldn't surprise me, or maybe even up to 80, I could realistically see a world where you have an 80-point score at some point over the course of this year. Who do you think it is? Let me know in the comment section below. And real quick, one more shout out to Damian Lillard, what he's been doing so far this year. I feel like I haven't shown him enough love on this channel. Like I said, I've been meaning to make a video about him, so this is a great chance to finally do so. He deserves more recognition for the way he's playing, regardless of the fact that the Blazers haven't been great themselves. It's not Dame's fault whatsoever. If anything, he's completely carrying that team a lot of nights, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done so far this season. Shout out to Dame, 71 points is absurd. Moving on to some of the other games across the league, we had Clippers versus Nuggets, which was incredible. It really felt like a playoff game, as many of these high-level matchups have over the past couple days. In particular, this weekend as a whole has had so many playoff-level matchups, and this one was no exception. Went all the way down to the wire, went to overtime after Paul George hit a three from half court that didn't end up counting because it was too late. Jokic led the way though in a Nuggets win when they dominated OT. He had 40 points, 17 boards, and 10 dimes. A 40-point triple-double, which just feels normal for Nikola Jokic at this point. MPJ had a great game with 29 and 11. Jamal Murray had 21 points and 12 dimes. It was one of the best games we've seen from this trio all season. Denver just seems locked in right now. They seem poised for a really deep playoff run, and between their depth and their star power, if I'm any other team in the West, I don't want to have to see them in the playoffs. As for the Clippers, they once again fall apart in a big moment. They couldn't seem to score in overtime. The offense was stagnating. The defense was getting lost. They were throwing bad turnovers, which was the case also in the fourth as well. It was just bad, and it was kind of the same things that killed them when they played against the Kings a few nights ago, which, by the way, one of my favorite games I've ever watched. Both teams scoring 170 points, the second highest scoring game in the history of the league. Unfortunately, I was out of town without my recording equipment, so I didn't get to talk about that one. But yeah, amazing game. Maybe I'll do a full breakdown of that someday. But in the fourth quarter, the Kings were down by double digits with just a few minutes to go, and it seemed like the game was all but wrapped up. And then LA had some lazy turnovers, some bad defense, some awful offense, and all of a sudden the Kings were right back in it, tied it up, sent it to overtime, where they would end up winning. This Clippers team just doesn't seem to execute down the stretch. Some of Tyronn Lue's rotations don't make sense to me. Like, why was Marcus Morris in this game at the end over Nick Batum, who was having a great impact? Marcus Morris had a shot in the corner that hit the top of the backboard. He was bad on offense. He was lazy one play, which just gave Jamal Murray a wide open transition three because he didn't seem to know who he was guarding. Russell Westbrook had a really good game in this one. He had a huge impact. He had a big third quarter. And then, I don't think he saw the fourth quarter floor once. I don't think he played after that third quarter where he was amazing and really got them back in the game after they were down pretty big. Instead, Lue went with Eric Gordon, who wasn't very good, when the Clippers out there looked like they could really use a playmaker, someone to get them some downhill pressure. But no, instead they settled for the guys that they had out there. It was just weird. And I know a lot of Clippers fans have complained about Tyronn Lue's rotations over the course of the year. And to me, this was one of the most egregious offenses he's had yet. Moving over to the other LA team, the Lakers faced off against the Mavericks in a game that they came back to win when they were down by 27 points, the biggest comeback of the season. I think it might have even been the biggest comeback in Lakers history, or at least it's absolutely one of them. But regardless, this is a massive win for a Lakers team that continues to look pretty good post-deadline. They haven't played too many great squads, although I do think this was a statement game for them. And once again, it was some of the new additions that were really giving big contributions. AD had 30 and 15. He was dominant. There was nothing the Mavericks could do. LeBron had 26, 8 and 3, playing on a pretty bad ankle, which hopefully isn't too big of a concern. But Jared Vanderbilt was the hero of the game. He had 15 points, 17 boards, 8 of them offensive, 4 steals. And when they were down big, Vando came in and immediately completely shifted the game. His defense on Luka all night was incredible. He was locked in, especially in the fourth quarter. Luka couldn't seem to get any good shots because Vando was completely sticking to him like glue. He was getting a hand up on everything. And I'm hoping people are now realizing how good Vanderbilt is in a national spotlight. Playing for the Lakers is always going to get you more love than it would get you playing for a smaller market team. So I'm glad he's now getting some of that recognition because he is such a high level, high impact player that goes unheralded because his stat sheet doesn't always look as amazing as it did tonight. But yeah, he's the perfect type of player to have on this Lakers team. And once again, LA looks pretty good post-trade deadline. As for Dallas, they kind of got complacent when they had that big lead. They kind of just hung around. They were going through the motions, and eventually the Lakers got all the way back into it, and they were like, oh shoot, we actually have to play a basketball game. But by that point, it was too late in the fourth quarter. They needed a bit more from Luka and Kyrie, who both had solid games, but you expect a bit more from them, especially down the stretch in a close game, one that they really would have liked to win. However, that just wasn't the case, and the Mavericks continue to kind of struggle post-Kyrie trade. Next, we have Bucks versus Suns, which I want to talk about for one reason, and that reason is Drew Holiday, who is still one of the most underrated players in the league. He had a 33.4 rebound, 5 assist game. He was amazing in the fourth quarter, offensively and defensively. He gives Devin Booker and the Suns team as a whole nightmares, I'm sure. After what happened in the finals, he did it again tonight. Just one of the most underrated players in the league. I think he should be in consideration for that Clutch Player of the Year award, although I think it'll go to De'Aaron Fox because he absolutely deserves it. But yeah, Drew is amazing. He got a lot of hate for being an all-star, which he does not deserve because he was the biggest reason why the Bucks won this game against the Suns without Giannis Antetokounmpo. On Phoenix side of things, Devin Booker continues to kind of struggle returning from his injury. Seems like he's kind of just still finding that rhythm. I'm not really worried. And also, they have reinforcements coming in the form of Kevin Durant in their next game, so Suns fans, I'm sure, aren't worried either. Finally, I want to real quick touch on Hawks versus Nets, which featured a Trae Young game winner from the mid-range. He led the way with 34 points and 8 dimes. As Atlanta continues to play well post Nate McMillan firing, they're now bringing in Quinn Snyder as their head coach for 5 years. They're giving him a really long-term deal without seeing him coach a single game, so hopefully that works out for them. I mean, the year that they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, they fired their coach halfway through the year and brought in Nate McMillan. Maybe they'll once again have some type of spark. Maybe for some reason the Hawks just get invigorated by firing coaches. Who knows, but maybe they're poised to go on another really solid run after firing a coach halfway through the year. And I do think Quinn Snyder is a good guy to coach this team, but once again, it looks good on paper. We'll have to see it in actual practice once he gets into the building. For For the Nets, they had 4 guys score 20 plus points, although it wasn't enough, but I do want to give a shout to Mikal Bridges, who had 24, 5, 3 to go with 2 steals and 2 blocks. Just all around, he's been phenomenal since getting to Brooklyn. He was good as well at Phoenix, having the best year of his career, but it really feels like he's starting to find his true potential. To wrap things up, the Warriors beat the Timberwolves behind the great play of Klay Thompson, who had 32 points, and it really feels like he's rounded a corner to becoming the player he used to be. The Kings beat the Thunder with De'Aaron Fox continuing his career year, leading the way with 33 points and 8 dimes. The Cavs beat the Raptors behind 35 points from Donovan Mitchell, who we already talked about earlier, and the Bulls clamped down the Wizards with DeMar DeRozan, dropping 29 points. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Once again, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. It helps the channel out a lot. And if you made it to the end of the video, you must have enjoyed at some point. Comment down below, like I said earlier, who you think could be the first player to score 100 points since Wilt Chamberlain, if anybody can do it in the league right now. Do you think we'll see more 70, even 80-point games over the course of this year, or do you think that we're kind of done for that at the moment? I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real One Saint back.